The story opens in the peaceful Andros system, where the gentle Villani people have built their civilization on 3 garden worlds. The Villani are small, blue-skinned beings who evolved on planets with light gravity and perfect climates. They have never known war, violence, or hardship. Captain Nara of the Villani research vessel Gentle Wind receives horrifying reports from their outer colonies. A massive armada of Ravok warships has entered their space. The Ravok are a brutal warrior race known across the galaxy for conquering peaceful worlds and enslaving entire populations. The Villani Council meets in emergency session. Their small defense fleet consists of only research ships with basic shields. They have no weapons, no military, and no experience with combat. The Ravok fleet numbers in the thousands, with massive battleships that could destroy planets. In desperation, the Villani send out a galactic distress call on all frequencies. They beg any civilized species for help, offering all their technological knowledge and resources in exchange for protection. The message reaches dozens of advanced alien races, but none respond. The powerful hegemony species consider the Villani too weak to bother saving. Others fear the Ravok too much to risk conflict. The distress call travels for days through space, until it reaches the edge of a forbidden zone marked in galactic charts as Deathworld Sector, Extreme Hazard. Most aliens avoid this region entirely, knowing it contains worlds so hostile that only the most dangerous creatures could survive there. On a small monitoring station, Lieutenant Cole picks up the alien transmission. He runs it through the translation systems and realizes peaceful aliens are about to be wiped out by an aggressive empire. Cole immediately forwards the message to Earth Command. Admiral Ross reads the report with growing anger. Humanity has spent decades trying to prove they deserve a place among galactic civilization, but the established alien powers treat them as dangerous savages from a death world. Now those same aliens ignore a cry for help from innocents. Ross calls an emergency meeting of the Human Defense Council. The debate is brief but intense. Some argue that humanity should focus on their own survival and avoid galactic conflicts. Others insist that saving innocent lives is exactly what separates civilized beings from monsters. General Hayes speaks the deciding words. If we let genocide happen when we could prevent it, we become no better than the ones committing it. The Villani asked for help. We're going to give it to them. The order goes out across human space. The Third Fleet, humanity's most powerful military force, begins mobilizing for an immediate departure. Ships that were scattered across a dozen systems start converging on the rally point. Meanwhile, in the Andros system, the Ravok fleet approaches the first Villani world. The alien invaders broadcast their demands: total surrender and submission to Ravok rule, or complete destruction of all Villani colonies. Captain Nara watches helplessly as Ravok fighters begin bombing runs on civilian targets. Villani cities burn. Under plasma bombardment, millions of peaceful aliens flee in terror as their beautiful worlds turn into battlefields. The Villani send another desperate message into space, this time with images of the destruction. Their final transmission ends with Captain Nara's broken voice. To anyone who can hear this, we are dying. Our children are dying. Please, someone help us. Light years away, Admiral Ross receives the updated transmission aboard the flagship, Terran Pride. The bridge falls silent as the crew watches footage of the Ravok massacre. Ross clenches his fists as he sees alien children running from burning buildings. All ships report ready for jump, Admiral, says Captain Blake. Ross nods grimly. Set course for the Andros system. Maximum speed. The Third Fleet vanishes into hyperspace, carrying humanity's answer to the Villani's cry for help. Behind them, Earth Command begins mobilizing additional forces, knowing that this mission might start a war with one of the galaxy's most feared empires. As the human ships race through hyperspace, alien monitoring stations across the galaxy detect the massive energy signatures. For the first time in decades, a major military force is moving out of the forbidden Deathworld sector. The story sets up the central conflict: peaceful aliens facing extinction, a galaxy that won't help them, and humans about to show the universe exactly why their homeworld is marked as too dangerous for other species to visit. The Third Fleet drops out of hyperspace at the edge of the Andros system. Admiral Ross stands on the bridge of the Terran Pride, watching the tactical display fill with red enemy contacts. The Ravak fleet is even larger than intelligence reported. Over 2,000 ships spread across 3 worlds. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surfaces, reports Commander Mills. They're bombarding civilian targets. Ross's jaw tightens as he watches the sensor data. Entire cities are being reduced to ash while the Ravak fleet maintains orbital positions around each Vallani world. The aliens are taking their time, enjoying the destruction. Communications, try to raise the Vallani leadership. Let them know help has arrived. On the surface of Andros Prime, Captain Nara huddles in an underground shelter with thousands of other Vallani refugees. The building shakes as another plasma bomb strikes nearby. Children cry in their parents' arms while the adults whisper prayers to their ancestors. Nara's communication device suddenly crackles to life with an unknown signal. A deep voice speaks in heavily accented but understandable Galactic standard. Vallani vessels, this is Admiral Ross of the human Third Fleet. We received your distress call. Please respond. The shelter falls completely silent. Nara stares at the device in disbelief. Human, he whispers. Most Vallani have never heard of humans, and those who have know only rumors about dangerous creatures from forbidden space. This is Captain Nara of the Vallani Defense Corps, he responds with shaking hands. Admiral Ross, you came. You actually... Gimme? We're here to help, Captain. Can you provide us with current enemy positions and civilian evacuation status? While Nara briefs the human fleet, the Ravak commander, General Corax, notices new contacts on his sensors. A small fleet has appeared at the system's edge. Only 50 ships compared to his massive armada. Pathetic. Corax growls to his bridge. Drew, some fools think they can challenge the Ravak Empire. Open a channel. The transmission reaches the human flagship. General Corax appears on screen. A massive reptilian creature with scarred armor and burning red eyes. His voice is filled with contempt. Unknown vessels, you have entered Ravak territory. Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed with the rest of these weaklings. Admiral Ross steps forward, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the alien warlord's rage. General Corax, I am Admiral Ross of the Terran Defense Force. You will immediately cease all attacks on civilian targets and withdraw from this system. Corax laughs, a sound like grinding metal. Terran, I have never heard of your pathetic species. You dare threaten the Ravak Empire with your tiny fleet? This is your only warning, General. Leave now, or we will remove you. The Ravak General's eyes narrow with fury. Impossible. No species has ever defeated the Ravak in battle. We have conquered 100 worlds and enslaved 1,000 species. Your bones will join the others. The transmission cuts as Corax turns. To his tactical officer, all ships destroy the newcomers. Show them the price of defying the Ravak Empire. On the Terran Pride, Admiral Ross watches 2,000 enemy ships begin moving toward his small fleet. His officers look nervous, but Ross remains perfectly calm. Sir, says Captain Blake quietly, are you sure about this? They outnumber us 40-1. Ross turns to face his bridge crew. Ladies and gentlemen, those aliens down there sent out a call for help. They're dying while we speak. Every military officer in this galaxy heard that call, and every single one of them decided it wasn't their problem. He pauses, looking each officer in the eye. But we're not every other military. We're human, and when someone asks for help, we answer. No matter the odds. The crew nods with grim determination. They've trained their entire lives for moments like this. All ships, this is Admiral Ross, he announces fleet-wide. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting an enemy that has never lost a battle. The galaxy expects us to run. The enemy expects us to die. His voice grows stronger. But we're not here to meet expectations. We're here to save lives. We're here to show the universe that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The Human fleet accelerates toward the massive Ravak armada, 50 ships against 2,000, carrying the hopes of an entire species on their shoulders. The first wave of Ravak fighters screams toward the human fleet. General Korax watches from his command ship, expecting to see the small alien force destroyed within minutes. Instead, something impossible happens. The human ships move like nothing the Ravak have ever seen. They twist and dive through space with impossible grace, their pilots pulling maneuvers that should kill any living creature. The first Ravak squadron fires plasma cannons at point-blank range, but the human fighters simply aren't there anymore. Commander Mills pilots her interceptor through a storm of enemy fire. Her body is pressed against her seat by forces that would crush most aliens, but she grins with savage joy. "This is what we trained for," she tells her wing. "Show them what Deathworld reflexes can do." The human fighters dance between Ravak ships, their weapons finding gaps in enemy armor with surgical precision. Within minutes, the first Ravak wave is debris floating in space. On the Ravak flagship, Tactical Officer Vex stares at his screens. Horror. "Sir, we've lost 60 fighters. The enemy has taken no casualties." Korax roars in fury. "Impossible! Send the heavy cruisers, crush them with superior firepower." But the human ships don't fight like any military force the Ravak have. Encountered. They work in perfect coordination, each ship covering the others while striking at enemy weak points. The Ravak cruisers find themselves facing an enemy that seems to predict their every move. Captain Blake commands the destroyer New York as it weaves between enemy battleships. The ship's armor is scored by plasma fire, but Blake keeps pressing the attack. "Target their engine clusters," she orders. "We don't need to destroy them, just disable them." The human strategy becomes clear as Ravak ships begin losing power and drifting helplessly. The aliens are used to fighting enemies who match them in brutality, but humans fight with cold intelligence and perfect teamwork. Down on Andros Prime, Captain Nara watches the battle through his scanner. The impossible is happening. The tiny human fleet is winning. Ravak ships are being disabled faster than they can respond to the human attacks. "How is this possible?" whispers a young Vallani engineer. "They're so few, and the Ravak are the most feared warriors in the galaxy." Nara remembers something from his xenobiology studies. The humans, they come from what the galaxy calls a Deathworld, a planet so dangerous that evolution made them into something different. On the Terran Pride, Admiral Ross coordinates the battle with calm precision. His officers move like parts of a machine, each understanding their role without needing orders. This is what humans do. They adapt, they improvise, they overcome. "Sir, Ravak reinforcements are moving in from the second planet," reports the tactical officer. "Let them come," Ross replies. "All ships, initiate Protocol 7. The human fleet suddenly changes formation, spreading out across the system. What looked like a single small force reveals itself to be something far more dangerous. A pack of predators using the vastness of space as their hunting ground. General Korax watches in growing horror as his carefully organized fleet falls apart. Human ships appear from unexpected angles, strike with devastating precision, then vanish before his forces can respond. This isn't warfare as the Ravak understand it. It's something completely alien. "They fight like hunters," Vex whispers. "Not soldiers, but pack hunters." The comparison is more accurate than the Ravak officer realizes. Humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. They learned to work together, to think ahead, to turn their environment into a weapon. Now they're using those same instincts against an enemy that has never faced anything like them. Commander Mills leads her squadron in a devastating strike against the Ravak command cruiser. Her fighters move in perfect synchronization, each pilot anticipating the other's movements. The enemy ship's defenses crumble under the precisely coordinated assault. "This is impossible," Korax screams as his ship shudders under human fire. "We are the Ravak Empire. We have conquered 100 worlds." Ross's voice comes over the communication channel, still perfectly calm despite the chaos of battle. "General, Your empire conquered species that had never seen real warfare. You're fighting humans now. We were born for this. As the battle rages, word spreads across the galaxy. Monitoring stations pick up the impossible signals. The feared Ravok fleet is being destroyed by an unknown force from the forbidden Deathworld sector. For the first time in galactic history, the Ravok Empire is learning what it means to face an enemy that evolved in hell itself. The Ravok fleet is in full retreat, but Admiral Ross isn't finished. Half their ships are disabled and drifting, while the others flee toward the edge of the system. General Corax's flagship limps along with the survivors, its engines barely functional. Sir, Captain Blake reports, enemy forces are attempting to withdraw. Should we pursue? Ross studies the tactical display. The immediate threat to the Villani is over, but he knows the Ravok will return with reinforcements if they escape. Open a channel to all Ravok vessels. Corax appears on screen, his armor cracked and his pride shattered. The mighty general who had terrorized 100 worlds now looks like a broken old reptile. General, Ross says calmly, you have a choice. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting and we will show you why humans mark their homeworld as a hazard zone. Corax's eyes burn with hatred. The Ravok Empire does not surrender to inferior species. We will return with 1,000 fleets and turn your Deathworld into ash. I was hoping you'd say that. Ross nods to his communications officer. Send the signal. Across human space, hidden monitoring stations receive the coded transmission. Within hours, the entire human military begins mobilizing. The Third Fleet was just the beginning. Down on Andros Prime, Captain Nara emerges from the shelter to see Ravok ships fleeing into hyperspace. The bombardment has stopped, and his people are safe. But he can't shake the feeling that something larger has begun. Captain, his communications officer calls out, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Admiral Ross appears on the screen, looking tired but determined. Captain Nara, the immediate threat is over. We've disabled most of their fleet and the survivors are retreating. Admiral, we don't know how to thank you. Our entire species owes you a debt we can never repay. Ross shakes his head. You don't owe us anything, Captain. We did what any decent species should do when asked for help. But Nara sees something in the human's eyes that troubles him. Admiral, this isn't over, is it? No, Captain, it's just beginning. Ross pauses, choosing his words carefully. The Ravok Empire has conquered dozens of species. They've enslaved entire civilizations. What happened here today will spread across the galaxy, and they'll see it as a threat to their power. Meanwhile, in the capital of the Ravok Empire, High Warlord Drak receives reports of the defeat. His massive throne room falls silent as he processes the impossible news. An entire Ravok fleet destroyed by 50 ships from an unknown species. Find everything about these humans, he orders his intelligence officers. I want to know their strength, their worlds, their weaknesses. And prepare the Grand Fleet. The Grand Fleet is the Ravok Empire's ultimate weapon. 5,000 ships including planet killers and world breakers. It has never been defeated in battle. Back in human space, Admiral Ross meets with Earth Command via secure transmission. President Chen listens grimly as Ross reports the battle's outcome. Admiral, our intelligence suggests the Ravok will respond with overwhelming force. They can't allow this defeat to stand, or their empire will face rebellions on every world. Ross, odds. I know, Madam President. That's why I recommend we don't wait for them to come to us. What are you suggesting? The Ravok Empire controls 47 star systems and enslaves 36 different species. Those slaves have been waiting centuries for someone strong enough to challenge their masters. President Chen understands immediately. You want to liberate their empire. I want to show the galaxy what humans stand for, Ross replies. We didn't. Save the Villani just to watch the Ravok rebuild and try again. If we're going to fight, we fight to win permanently. The transmission ends, and Ross turns to Captain Blake. Begin preparations for Phase 2. Contact our allies in the outer colonies. and start gathering intelligence on Ravak slave worlds. Sir, are we really going to take on an entire galactic empire? Ross looks out at the stars, thinking of all the species suffering under Ravak rule. The galaxy spent centuries ignoring cries for help because it was safer to look the other way. They let evil spread because fighting it was too risky. He turns back to Blake with grim determination. But we're human. We don't ignore calls for help, and we don't let evil spread unchallenged. If the Ravak Empire wants to learn why Earth is marked as a death world, we'll give them a very thorough education. Across human space, the greatest military mobilization in species history begins. 6 months after the Battle of Andros, the galaxy is transformed. The Ravak Empire, which had terrorized civilized space for centuries, lies in ruins. Their capital world burns as human liberation fleets free the last of their slave colonies. Admiral Ross stands on the bridge of the Terran Pride as it orbits the former Ravak homeworld. Around him, dozens of liberated species celebrate their freedom. The Keth, who had been enslaved for 300 years, dance in the corridors of captured Ravak ships. The gentle Miran people sing ancient songs of liberation they thought they would never perform again. High Warlord Drak, the supreme ruler of the Ravak Empire, sits in chains aboard a human transport ship. The proud warrior who once commanded 5,000 vessels now faces trial for crimes against entire civilizations. How? He asks Admiral Ross during their final meeting. How did your tiny species destroy an empire that lasted 1,000 years? Ross looks at the broken warlord with something approaching pity. You never understood what you were fighting, Drak. You saw 50 ships and thought you faced 50 ships. You couldn't comprehend that you were fighting an entire species worth of... Yuri, the truth is more complex than Ross lets on. The humans didn't win through superior numbers or technology. They won because they fought for something the Ravak couldn't understand. The idea that freedom and justice were worth any sacrifice. Captain Nara, now serving as the Vallani representative to the new Galactic Liberation Council, reads reports. From across known space, former slave worlds are rebuilding. Species that had been extinct for generations are being restored from genetic samples found in Ravak research facilities. But the most significant change is happening in the galactic political structure itself. The old hegemony powers, who had ignored cries for help for centuries, now find themselves facing a new reality. Ambassador Wells represents humanity at the Galactic Senate on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. The Great Chamber, which once echoed with the voices of only the most powerful species, now includes representatives from dozens of formerly enslaved worlds. The chair recognizes the Terran representative, announces the Senate moderator, his voice betraying nervousness. Wells stands, looking across the assembly of aliens who had once considered humans too dangerous to acknowledge. Honorable senators, 6 months ago, the Vallani people sent out a distress call asking for help. Every military power in this chamber heard that call. Every single one of you decided it wasn't worth the risk. The chamber falls silent. The hegemony representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. Today, 47 star systems are free because humans answered that call. 36 species exist because we decided that some things are worth fighting for, regardless of the cost. Senator Vorthak of the powerful Zephyrian hegemony rises to respond. The Terran representative speaks of costs, but what of the chaos you've unleashed? The Ravak Empire maintained order across dozens of systems. Wells fixes the alien senator with a cold stare. The Order of the Grave, Senator. The Order of Chains. And whips and mass executions. If that's the kind of order you value, perhaps you should examine your own conscience. The Zephyrian sits down heavily, unable to meet the human's gaze. Back on Earth, President Chen reviews reports from the liberation zones. Refugee camps are being converted into temporary cities as displaced species decide where to rebuild their lives. Human engineers work alongside alien scientists to restore damaged worlds. Madam President, her aide reports, we're receiving formal applications from 12 species requesting to join the Terran Defense Alliance. Chen nods thoughtfully. The TDA was formed after the Ravak War to ensure that no empire could again terrorize the galaxy unchallenged. What started as a human military organization has become something much larger. On Andros Prime, Captain Nara watches Vallani children play in parks that 6 months ago were bomb craters. The scars are healing, but the memory of that desperate distress call remains fresh. His communication device chimes with an incoming message. Another species, the Quelli, is under attack by raiders in the Outer Rim. They're sending out a plea for help, just as the Vallani did months ago. Nara smiles as he forwards the message to Admiral Ross. He knows what the response will be. Because humans don't ignore calls for help, and they don't let evil spread unchallenged. The galaxy has learned what happens when someone calls Earth asking for help. They get it, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. And that simple fact has changed everything. The end.